I don't see why translation as a service has to be linked to a word rate. It just makes it a commodity that is so easily exploitable. Whereas if you actually try to charge for your knowledge, then no one can tell you what you're worth, right?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Voices of the Industry podcast by the AI Localization Think Tank, which aims to bring diverse voices of our industry to engage in the conversation about how AI is impacting what we do today. Today, we are so lucky to have with us Adrian Probst. Welcome, Adrian.
Hello, Cora.
Hi. Thank you so much for coming to the podcast. I will start by introducing yourself a little bit. So, for those of you that don't know Adrian yet, he is an English and French to Swiss German freelance translator, language specialist, and content creator. He is based in Belgium, in Brussels, although he comes originally from Switzerland. Please correct me if I'm wrong with any
All
of the
good
data.
so far, yeah.
Adrian has an impressive career working with clients across the sports and the technology industries, helping international brands communicate naturally and effectively with German-speaking audiences. He works with both direct clients and some LSPs also. And beyond his translation work, Adrian is also the creator of and host of a popular YouTube channel called Freelanceverse, thriving community of freelance translators and language professionals. Every week, Adrian shares insights about freelancing, the translation industry, entrepreneurship, and he's helping viewers navigate through and grow also with their own freelance careers. I think Freelanceverse has become one of the most recognized platforms in the language industry, at least for freelancers. Your channel has, I documented myself, over 37,000 subscribers and more than 1.7 million views.
I don't know that, but that sounds cool.
It's a really cool number, yeah. And for sure, it's a go-to resource for anyone that's navigating the world of the freelance translation. So thank you again, Adrian, for joining us. And
Thank you, Cora. Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
yeah, and I guess let's dive into the questions, starting from the beginning so that we can know a little bit more about yourself. So how did you first get into translation? When did you realize that freelancing was the path for you? Why sports translation? And was that all a clear path, or was that happening by chance?
Yeah, everything happened by chance. There was really no pre-planning. This whole journey started now in 2011, so that's now 14 years ago. In the summer of 2011, I had finished my normal education in Switzerland, let's say. Like you usually, it's quite rare that people, or there is a way that you go straight to university, but the usual way is that you learn a profession, you do an apprenticeship, and then later on, if you have the opportunity, you can go to a high school, it's called, but it's not the same as the American high school, or to a university. And so in 2011, I had this opportunity, and I was surprised by that because it was never my plan to go, but then I thought if I have the chance, why not? So I looked through all the possible studies that could interest me, and I knew it has to be something with languages. That's where I excelled at school, and I found a translation study, and it's really cool. But I would have to move away from home, like 2 hours away. I don't know if I want to do that, but I decided to go for it, and yeah, I did my studies, my bachelor in translation. Worked for 2 years later on in a translation agency as a project manager, then went abroad to the Netherlands, studied information sciences there because I wanted to link my interest in technology with language. I was really interested in natural language processing, and I was trying to find my way in there without having a computer science background. And then just by sheer lack of money, I was like, I need to do something. So I thought, let's put this bachelor to work and let's try to become a translator. And it worked. So during my master's, I started in 2016 and 2017. So it's been now 9 years, yeah. And a couple years later, around 2020, I decided to start a Freelanceverse, the YouTube channel where I share insights into language, translation, freelancing, really I try to not give too many guidelines to myself. So I keep it an open book, whatever I feel interesting, find interesting that week I talk about.
That's
And
great.
you asked about sports, right? That was also, I just found throughout my career, I found a client, an agency that has a very large sportswear end client. And I found out that I really like that. And then through a colleague in that team, I found another sports client and so on. And now I work, let's say, I don't know, 80% in the sports industry. Really cool.
Wow. It's great how you are finding your way by following the passion and following things that you like, and also creating this community of people that also help you go through finding new clients and being sure that you have a consistent revenue freelancing. That's, I think, something that worries a lot of people in this community.
That's true. I was very lucky with that, and I always prioritized that. I really didn't want to work as, nothing against people that work on like certificates or diplomas, but I specifically didn't want to do that. I didn't want to be a certified translator because I didn't want private customers. I wanted a steady flow of work. So clients that come back, not clients that need once a diploma. So that was my intention, to work with large companies, or at least with companies that I can build a lasting relationship with.
And you're for sure great at building relationships. I think that's why Freelanceverse and moving through what passions you, what brings you this spark. That's why I think your channel is such a success, in my opinion. You know that I watch your videos since forever. So I want to maybe dig a little bit more on Freelanceverse. So what inspired you to start your YouTube channel, and did you expect it to be this big?
There are two things that inspired me. One was just being bored during COVID and having to do something. And I realized that there was, I think, in the whole economy, there was a shock wave going through everyone's spine, like what now? But also in the translator community, suddenly do we still have work? I don't know, like everyone is stopping their production. Do we still have jobs? So I knew I have to change something. I didn't really do much marketing at that point. I just reached out in cold calls and cold emails. Actually, that's not true. I did some marketing, but very active, nothing passive. My name was not out there. So I was thinking during the lockdown, I was thinking to myself, how can I create something that works as a marketing tool, but also doesn't scare me and doesn't make me feel so bad, because I just really not the person that just picks up the phone and calls a client, right? I wanted to do something that I can do on my own term, and then long-lasting effects could come from that, like in a passive marketing way. So that was one motivation. And then I pretty quickly came to YouTube because I use it a lot in my search for information and knowledge. I think it's a fantastic resource for visual learners as well, because there was already back then, there was some content about our profession, but not especially. There was Robert Gebhardt's channel. I don't know if you know about that. It's called Freelance Translator Tips. That helped me a lot back then, and I was really consuming all of his content. But I knew that there was still a space for me, because he really focuses on quick information, just putting the video out there whenever he has a thought, puts it out there. So I knew that there is a way to play the YouTube game almost in this niche, play with thumbnails, play with titles, play with tags in the backend, look at keywords, and I love these things. I like to obsess about the background of that. So I knew at some point, if I have enough experience gathered, I would like to share what I learned, and in a way that is just an ongoing process that also forces me to learn more. So I didn't want to come across as also, now I'm going to teach you, this is a course, you need to follow what I do. Not at all. It's more like I'm going to share what I learned so far, and also going to share what I learned continuously. And it forces me every week to dive into a topic. I've learned so much over the years, because every Monday I have to talk about something, right? And I think I would never know so much about this industry, know all these people I know now without that. Yeah, that has been so cool. In terms of expectations, I knew that I thought that I would do it for a year, and I had the expectation that I would probably reach like 1,000 subscribers or so in a year. And that was pretty accurate. I think it was like 1.5 thousand or something. But I also had Robert's channel. I saw it. He was almost at 10,000. So I knew that there is the interest. There are at least the people are there, right? So it's possible. So once I decided to keep going after 1 year, I did have the, not expectation, but ambition to grow it to at least what it is now, but do more as well. Like I have still big goals with it, with this community.
And I think that's key, the community part, because you research which topics are of interest for the freelancer community, and you try to find answers. You try to also engage with people that can help you create the content that the freelance community need. And I think that's why your content is such a success, because you put the work there, and most of that, the part of that work is listening to people and hearing what they need, what they want to know, what their fears are, how are they struggling, doubts they may have. And that's creating you, that's making you being the voice of the freelancers. In a way, you are there every Monday sharing content with them, but you are there every day listening back to them, what's it that they liked from your content, what they didn't, what they want to know more, and what they don't.
Yeah, it's kind of similar to what you do, right? Giving people a voice, giving people the opportunity to ask questions and get direct answers. I always do Q&A sessions so people can ask their questions. And even though they often repeat themselves, they're often the similar questions, but that shouldn't discourage people from asking, right? Because you are at the moment where you ask this question is exactly when you are in this position, and you're not going to go back to videos from years ago and look for answers. So I fully understand that. So I try to not think, oh, I need to do something new every week, because maybe something that I repeat is very valuable for that person on that specific Monday, right?
Yeah, and I think also seeing how people maybe repeat themselves in the questions, different people ask similar questions, that also helps you figuring out trends. Everybody, after they graduate, they have these questions. After they find their first jobs, they have these questions. So that helps you also finding trends and making your content more relevant to that group of people that are in that particular moment in their lives at that time. So I think from all these conversations and interactions that you have online with all the community of freelance translators and linguists in general, talking about trends now, how would you describe the overall mood or mindset amongst the freelancers right now? We know that every job, and specifically that those of freelance translators, are very heavily impacted by AI right now, and this being the AI think tank. What are the moods there? What are the fears, the hopes? What do you hear?
Yeah, it's pretty split, the mood, and unfortunately mostly negative at the moment, I think. So it's really, it's my goal, and it's also pretty appreciated, I think, that I try to keep the tone positive and encouraging on the channel. That doesn't mean that I try to fake things. There definitely, I try to keep it real, but I also try to, there's enough negativity elsewhere, especially on LinkedIn, for example. So I try to not go into these deep rabbit holes of negativity. But the biggest fear is definitely AI. So that's exactly why I wanted to talk to you as well, and why also you and Belen came on my channel. I consistently mentioned that it's not enough anymore nowadays to just cruise on autopilot and wait around for jobs. That just work for agencies, wait until a job comes in, maybe make your bid and then try to work on it. It's just not enough anymore. You have to become the top 25% in your language pair, in your specialization. Like I suspect, unfortunately, that around 80% of the people that we saw working in the industry as freelancers will most likely not be needed anymore. And that puts a lot of pressure on and anxiety on people. But then at the same time, it can also give you, for me, it does the opposite. It really gives me motivation. It's a motivating tool for me to facilitate growth. And I know that I don't want to anyways be in the 50%, right? I didn't study for years to be in the 50%. Like I did all this work. I want to be at the top of my game. That's why I specialize. That's why I learn. That's why I do all these things. That is tiring and not easy. But I don't know. For me, I know it can be tough, and especially for people that coming straight out of uni. But I don't want this 25% mark that I tell people. I don't want that to scare you. I want it to motivate you. If you are here watching a video like this, for example, you're already so close to it. Like, why would someone in the 20 percentile go seek a video like this? So it's sometimes we are also in an imposter spiral, and we always think we're not good enough. But the fact that you're looking for information here in a video like this is already putting you ahead of a lot of competition.
Yeah.
But yeah, the atmosphere is very split. And I know exactly also, I could play with that a lot on my channel, right? I know exactly which titles would create huge clicks and sensationalist videos, but I also don't want to do that because that's not the goal. I don't want to have these big numbers. I want to give real value to people. And so it's a bit of a balance between creating very practical, let's talk about taxes, let's talk about invoicing, or what is the future of translation with AI? Of course, like this will blow up and this will create a few hundred views, but yeah, that's not the motivation of the channel. I don't know if that answered your question. Sorry.
Yes, it did.
I went on a
And it also speaks very highly of you to just want to be honest with what's the reality. And of course, freelancers, they have other problems apart from AI. There's invoicing, there's finding new customers, recurring customers, there's how to differentiate yourself. Which tools do you have, or do you learn, or do you use? So there are many other problems, even if AI is now the main topic of conversation. And
but ironically, these other problems would probably save you from the AI problem, right?
yeah. True. I've been very honest. You know that I'm a fan of your videos, and I've watched a few of them, and I've heard also some of your opinions on these AI topics. And I know that you have positive view in terms of value, the value that linguists can add, how linguists can keep being relevant. You just mentioned that maybe only 80% of freelance translators will continue doing that, but there's so much more that linguists can still do. That doesn't mean, in your opinion, that all those 80% of people will be jobless. I think that there are some many other things that people can do. I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. I made a video about that, what I think the language industry would look like in 10 years. Obviously, that's all speculation. That's what that was actually a very spontaneous video. I was just sitting on a bench in a forest and I was like, yeah, what could I talk about this week? And then I just started recording. And now that's another thing, that a video that had basically no script, just in my head, thought that could be interesting, is now becoming very big. And then sometimes I think like I should really be more careful with what I say because it can have a lot of implication in a way. But yeah, I don't see how or how do I put this? I can see maybe that the current traditional translation, how we know it, and I don't mean traditional, just traditional like our generation knows translation, is probably, if I had to guess, I would say we have maybe the 2020s left with this workflow, client, agency, freelancer, agency, client. I don't see how that can go into the 2030s with the current development in AI. So I'm trying also to think for myself, like how can I fit into this new workflow that could be, even the pipeline could be completely reversed. Maybe I'm needed before the localization thought even comes in, right? Maybe I'm already needed in the content creation at that point. How can I support the client in writing the text in a way that localization is then facilitated in a step later on? So these are all things I'm trying to think about, and I'm trying to offer packages to my clients instead of trying to move away from the traditional translation method of charging per word, but rather charging for projects, charging for knowledge, or consulting services. Now, I'm aware that this is not feasible for people starting out, probably. Actually, I don't know if it's feasible or not. I can't really put myself into the shoes anymore of someone finishing uni right now. So I wonder if it took me to come to this realization. I wonder if it took me the years of experience I have, or if I would come to that now anyways, if I was a student. But the fact is, I think you have to be creative. You have to reinvent yourself. Don't be scared of calling yourself also different names. I know I mentioned that once in a talk in TEF, and it was not well received. People are really clinging on to the term of translator in an emotional way. I never had that. I don't really care if I'm called a translator or a language specialist or whatever. I use the term that works best to impress my clients, right? I see who needs what, and then I adapt myself accordingly. Yeah, I remember I threw words out like localization architect, language advisor, I think tone predictor, virtual tone predictor and stuff. So all things that are more involved in the process of actual creation, because I can't see that the creation and the localization process will be so much separated that you can afford to be in either of them. I think they will be combined. Of course, it's very abstract. I don't know what it will look like, but it's something I'm thinking about to close the gap between the end client and me, so I don't have to go through all the steps, but I can be really directly working with them.
Uh-huh. That's a very interesting way of putting things, and I guess it transforms you into more of a cultural consulting person. You're there to adapt to markets, language,
Kind of, yeah.
or anything that's related to cultures, and making it appealing for that new market. So that also indeed it will change the whole process that you mentioned, and all these payment per words. What happens when we are offering cultural knowledge instead of words? How is that priced? How is that valued? And of course that will bring value, because it's not just words that you can just generate with any generative tool. You are consulting on culture, so that's a way of changing the perspective.
Yeah, and it's translator is not linked necessarily to words, in my opinion. If I advise a client to use a more neutral color in an Asian market than you would in a European market, I'm still translating knowledge, but I'm not using any words for it. So I don't see why translation as a service has to be linked to a word rate. It just makes it a commodity that is so easily exploitable. Whereas if you actually try to charge for your knowledge, then no one can tell you what you're worth, right? You just charge whatever your clients are willing to pay. And that's what I'm exploring now. I can't say it works all the time, right? I get so many rejections for my offer. Probably the email that I read the most, that unfortunately we can't pay you for these rates for that. But that's fine. Like, I just continue. Eventually, it doesn't take, luckily, if you're a freelancer, you don't have a huge pipeline of projects. So it doesn't take a long list of clients for you to be busy, right? So it's not like you're a multinational that needs to have a client base of 200,000 or whatever clients. So if you find your 5, 6 recurring clients, you're quite busy already. So
that's nice. I like the way you have of seeing things that are coming your way in a new trend without being scared of them, and embracing change, and always being busy learning new stuff and thinking about how things can be. And that's in a way, now putting I work in an LSP hat, that's in a way also how we try to see things. We try to keep innovating and keep doing new things and offering new stuff to our customers, and seeing how to address new needs and bring more value. And I know we've been talking about how all this being innovative circle, it's also maybe creating needs that people didn't have or people still don't have, and how there's this trend in the industry in general where we are innovating for the sake of it, but maybe not addressing a market need or a pain point. And I want to know your thoughts about all this movement, let's say, what that's happening around innovating or using AI, let's say, because innovation usually is tackling a pain point, or innovation comes because there's a problem and we have to solve it. But using AI for the sake of using AI, what are your thoughts there as a translator, but also as a content creator? Because of course you're impacted in both
yeah.
sides.
Yeah, it's insane the amount of AI slop content that is floating around YouTube. It's crazy. But in a sense, I almost welcome this type of low-cost AI slop content because it makes it so easy then for me to stand out. We spent years of honing our crafts as writers. We are writers at heart. We probably read and write more than 99% of the population, right? Reading and writing is what we do every day. So it's very easy for us to outperform AI content. I feel like maybe we can't write in a way that is pleasing the algorithms, but that's also not something that I want to do, right? And okay, maybe some clients require that you write in an SEO way, but then anyways, the creativity gets lost a bit in that sense. But yeah, like I feel like I see it way too often, and I had a conversation with Balázs Kish on my channel about that, and he also, I mean, he's obviously much more in the tech circle and the founder circle and innovator circle than me, but he also said that it's insane the amount of pressure from stakeholders to use some kind of AI just so you can put a label on it. It's definitely a hype and it's not needed, right? You don't need for these headphones, for example, I mentioned it in the previous video, there is an AI feature. Do people really need that? I went on Fiverr for a video and there was an AI feature. I just don't see, I understand why companies do it, but I think that there is no way that these are actually sustainable and profitable. And I already see now, at least in my circles, I've heard of people already seeing a kind of signs that the bubble is bursting and that clients are coming back that try to introduce their localization efforts with an LLM and then seeing that it actually didn't improve the numbers. It might actually hurt the numbers, right? Because if you, especially depending on who you write for, but if you have an app that experts use and you don't properly localize it, then they will actually notice. It's not, for some use cases, it's good enough is enough. That's fine. But good enough is not where I want to be. Fine, use tools for that. That's not where you need me. There is enough content, but good enough is not enough. And that's where we, the 25% that want to make it, can excel. But yeah, I think it's a huge problem at the moment with this. Just because we can, we should implement it. And then it creates a whole bigger conversation about the biggest AI companies in the world are obviously being funded by billions of huge corporations and governments, right? So it's not even a question whether they should. It might be that they have to. So it's becoming a race to an AI race to the top, and if we don't do it, the opponent will get there first, and that creates a dynamic that can be quite dangerous and could harm not only our industry but humanity as a whole. I feel like, because I don't see how a system that is trained solely on efficiency, and then you reach a point where one system is developing the next system and so on, right? And then you reach a point where, okay, my only goal is to be more efficient. So why do I not erase all this garbage human language? I can create a way more efficient language. And then suddenly you lose transparency and you think, okay, maybe this is not good. I think we are already there, but just not known to the public. And you just think, okay, it's probably not safe anymore, but we might just let it run to see if something good comes out of it. And that I don't know. Obviously, I'm not this. Yeah, it's all based on things that I read and things that I feel. It's not very scientific, but it worries me a bit in which direction we are going.
I can imagine also seeing that you are usually super positive in your videos and seeing how all this using AI for the sake of it. And I'm very curious, what's the AI feature in your headset? Is it for translation? What is that about?
No, it scans the environment and then adjusts the sound to your optimum.
Oh.
It changes the voice, the sound if you're in a metro or at home, etc. I've never used it. I refuse to use it. But I also don't want to become this AI skeptic and stuff. But it's just, I don't know, it's been too much lately. I've gotten really upset with the lack of responsibility. And I know that you discuss ethics a lot in the think tank, and I think that it's getting lost a bit. I don't know. I feel like
Yeah.
I don't like where listen to interviews of the big CEOs and people in charge of these companies, and they just seem to be just not caring about the value of creativity, of humanity, of what we actually have a purpose here, right? It just seems to be efficiency over everything, and that is not a good. And initiatives like you create is so important, even on a small scale like the localization industry. But I know that it also a lot of efforts are happening in the software development world as well. So I think everyone needs to stand up and create some guidelines for themselves so we can create something that is sustainable.
Yeah. And let's then finish on guidelines and humanity. I was very touched by what you said about maybe humans. And in your case, that you've been so successful with your YouTube channel just based on passion, not based on efficiency, but doing something because you're passionate about. And passion is a very much a human feeling, not much related to AI efficiency, let's say. If you could design one rule for how humanity interacts with AI, like a moral guideline you were mentioning for the 21st century in the translation world, but also content creation, other fields, what would that be?
I was thinking about that when I also made the videos about AI. Also, not only for humanity, but also for me personally. Like, I want to have something that is applicable to me and also to a large corporation. Is there a way that I can just create this kind of guideline for myself? And I thought I would just call it responsibility before efficiency. Because that kind of includes everything that whenever you think, should I do that? Think of yourself, is it responsible? Yes. Is it efficient? Yes. Okay, go for it. If it's responsible, no, already stop. It doesn't matter if it's efficient. So, because obviously this is like an idealistic view. I know that companies have stakeholders that they need to please, but it just, I don't know, it bugs me. And I don't really know a solution of how it could go forward because I just can't see that countries like the USA and China would sit at a table and think, how can we get responsibility before efficiency? It just seems so out of this world, but hopefully at some point we can get there so we create a future also for our children that is livable because they need to have a purpose. What if each iteration of AI is becoming so powerful and so strong that we just there's no need for intellectual property of humans? Then what happens? Then you sell, you get probably then you would get paid by your thoughts because your thoughts are feeding the algorithms, right? So you create a system where you're paid based on the thoughts you have, but then you go into a huge class system, although I guess that's already existing. But anyways, there's so many applications. My guideline would be responsibility before efficiency, and I hope that as many people at home and people in charge can apply that.
That's a good moral rule. We do talk a lot in the think tank about ethics, that's right. And one thing that this is more personal to me, but I think that yes, we can be forced to use certain features like you bought headsets that have AI in them. But if it's something that's not useful for you, that's not serving a purpose or fixing an issue that you have, why should you use that feature? So for me, a successful implementation is that users want to use. Good example is how ChatGPT blew from nothing to millions of users overnight because it was easy to use and people got curious and people started to use it very fastly. So it was new and serving a purpose that of something that was not there before, and people found it useful and started to use it. Nobody was forced to use that one feature or that one tool. Now, use it with responsibility. That's a very good guideline. Being mindful of what are the consequences of you using something or not using something. That's also the other side of the coin. Maybe you choose to not use it, and what is given up on not using any AI feature. And I'm not talking about translation. I'm talking about your headsets. If maybe you are in a busy, noisy environment and you willingly choose to not use that feature, you know what you are exposing yourself to. So it's a give and take, I think, in my opinion.
Yeah, at the moment it is still, yeah, because you're not forced to, right? But then what if let's say, iteration 4 from now on is as powerful as it would put companies at a risk to not use it because all the other companies are just outperforming them that use this model. If it's a model that is a million times faster than a human, and then you can simply copy paste it and create millions of it, then there is just simply no way that a company that's not using it could compete. And then it becomes more of a need to use it. And you could say that you're forced, or you can not use it and go bankrupt. But that's what I worry about in the 2030s, because I don't see how the development is made in the background, right? In the dark rooms. No, it's not what we see as the public users is not the latest technology. Obviously, that's probably like 4 iterations behind. So I'm curious what happens at that point when something is released that would just disrupt everything so much that humans can't compete anymore. But yeah, that's thoughts that hopefully we still have time to think about and to align with humanity's goals. As long as it's aligned, it's fine. And I think that most people a lot of scientists also say that it's not, in terms of energy use, it's just not possible to reach that threshold with the resources we have. But then I also say, what if we don't know what is possible with the resources of the world? If you have infinite knowledge, you might figure out a way to create infinite energy as well.
Maybe. I think we will have to cross that bridge when we come to that
Exactly.
point. We can theorize and come with possible scenarios for a couple of hours more. But it's good to know that you are also open to all these conversations and theories. And I will remember when we are in a weird futuristic situation to invite you to the podcast again, so that we can talk about it more.
Okay, then maybe we can sit virtually in the same room and just shake hands.
Exactly. I will get myself those headsets and join you in a very noisy place without hearing any noise.
No, but you're right. All you can do is take baby steps, and that's exactly what we do with these talks, right? So it's very useful.
Exactly.
So thank you for inviting.
And it's a very human thing to do, to find hope also in the community, to find knowledge in out there, and to keep adapting. And that's exactly what you've been doing and what you are also guiding other freelancers to do, to go into a more adapting themselves to new technologies, to new niches, to new knowledge. And yeah, it's sometimes tricky to not get nervous thinking about a potential future, but for sure adapting is adapting and passion, those are two very human feelings, and we should embrace them. So thank you so much, Adrian, for sharing this conversation with us, and I hope you enjoyed your time in the think tank.
Definitely, yeah. Keep doing what you're doing. It's very useful.
Thank you.